when people talk about, when we're talking about this concept of doing as much work as you can and still recover, we're focusing on what you're actually doing in the gym, but what should you do outside of the gym to maximize your recovery ability when it comes to nutrition and sleep and other aspects?
That's a great question. And actually the recovery book, which hopefully we'll eventually write, is going to be probably mostly about that. That's a great question because a lot of people just kind of assume that your recovery ability is standard, but it's not. It has a lot to do with the recovery interventions, your use, to be technical, your use of the recovery modalities. And the recovery modalities can actually be ranked, and we'll be rank ordering them on how powerful they are. The most powerful recovery modality by far is sleep. It doesn't matter what you eat. It doesn't matter how many drugs you take. If you're not sleeping well, you can forget about getting the most out of your recovery. So number one, make sure you're getting consistent sleep. How much sleep? I love answering this question. You ready? You know how much sleep. You know when you're tired. Don't give me that crap. People are like, how many hours do I need to sleep a night? Really? You can't tell when you're like rubbing your eyes all the time and you can't stay awake? Like, well, I don't know. You know how much sleep you need. Some people need 7 hours, some people need 9, and everything in between, right? Some people need less and some people need more. Get enough sleep, and you always know what that number is, and be consistent with your sleep. Number two, calories. Calories are indispensable. They're the most important nutritional variable and the second most important general variable. Protein matters, carbs matter, so those matter too, but just food volumes. If you're in a hypercaloric diet, you can take a train wreck of training and still recover. If you're on a hypocaloric diet and you're dieting, it doesn't matter if you're on the world's best supplements, any of that crap. You will be paying the price in recovery. So calories are important, and for just the viewer at home, a consistency in eating. If you don't want to be a very good athlete, just eat when you feel like it and undereat often and go for 8 hours without eating. You know, and some people are good about this kind of stuff, and it just takes a little bit of a modification. For example, you're European, this might make some sense to you. You go to a dance festival or an electronic music festival. Okay, I love electronic music. It's pretty much the only music I listen to. I'd love to live in Europe because I get to go a whole lot more shows. You go to a show, and the show's 10 hours long. You know, maybe you're not using it, but everyone else is using ecstasy and mushrooms and all that stuff. And it's all great fun, beautiful part of life. A dedicated lifter, you don't have to not go to music shows. But what you have to do is literally, because you're there for 10 hours, eat before you leave, pack 3 protein bars that at the 5-hour mark, you eat all 3, and then you go back to having fun. And then after that 10 hours, you take all your friends out to go get some restaurant food. Problem solved with 3 fucking protein bars. It's all it took. You don't have to go on Facebook and Instagram and go hashtag determination, hashtag goals, hashtag sacrifice. 3 protein bars and you're golden, right? And you just have to eat them all at once. You don't even have to like eat them all the time or have a picture of you and your cooler at everyone's dancing and you have a fucking cooler, right? So it's that easy, and it just takes a little bit of foresight. I hang out, a bunch of my friends are not lifters. They're remotely interested in lifting. They're people that I just have fun with in 50 other different kinds of ways. Mostly they sit around and drink, and I sit around and chill with them, and we talk and campfires and stuff to odd hours in the morning. The only modification I make is I just make sure to bring a little bit more food and some protein bars, and I'm good to go. It's that kind of stuff, that consistency of recovery that makes you really good. And when your friends are saying, hey, you know, we're going to party more tomorrow, you going to party with us? You say, yep, but right now I'm going to go get my 8 hours of sleep, and I'll be back up in the morning with you guys. We're going to camp out in front of the music, and we're going to have a great time, and it's all going to be well, but you just make sure to get some sleep, right? It's none of this is, you don't have to isolate yourself in a chamber and live your life in Dragon Ball Z style, right, where you don't speak to anyone else just to get strong. Just have the little things of just getting enough sleep and getting enough food. And the last big one, I can talk about this for hours, you can probably tell, the last really big ingredient is stress management. And stress will kill you, literally, but it'll also ruin your ability to recover. So one thing that I can say is a big piece of life advice for the good athlete who wants to recover: you have a certain amount of work and responsibilities. Breathe in, breathe out, calmly and happily execute your work in a timely fashion. Finish your work, go have fun. Don't let the work worry you. Do a good job and be yourself. Have fun with your friends. Relax, eat, enjoy life. However, If you don't get your work on time, if you're rushing all the time, if you're late to stuff all the time, if you have deadlines piling up, if you're worried about everything, it's going to ruin your recovery ability no matter what you eat, no matter how much you sleep, because stress kills. So do a good job, do your work, and then relax. And there's nothing to ever worry about, because worry is an outdated human emotion that we inherited in the jungle and we don't need anymore. Another good example of how not to worry, traffic. Is there anything you can do about traffic? If you're sitting in traffic, is there anything, if you're Magneto, you can just move the cars out of the way. Great, then just do that. But people get worried in traffic, and there's no function to that. If you're worried or not worried, you still get to the destination at exactly the same time. So when something is out of your control, don't worry about it. And remember this, if that's not convincing enough, if I'm being too hippie for you, if I'm being too much like, hey man, don't worry, bro, like it's all okay. You're like, no, I want success. I have to worry. Bullshit. If you really want success, the dedicated athlete is so in control of his mind, he knows that his body cannot afford worry. The dedicated athlete makes it a point not to worry. Other people get to worry. Regular people who don't care about how their bodies perform, they get the luxury of worrying. A good athlete does not. So when you're on the train and the train stops because of maintenance or repairs, and people are going to be late to work and they're going to be late to school, everyone around you is going to be texting on their phone, fuck, I fucking hate the train, I hate this is stupid, they're going to be freaking out. The dedicated athlete smiles, watches Netflix on their phone, relaxes, because they know they have a big squat session later that day. They can afford to piss away their recovery with worry. That's my big take-home message on that part.